talk about some of the benefits that someone gets from their niyyah. And then on top of the benefits, at the end, we'll have time for questions about anything that was talked about in here in the class. And inshallah, I'll answer as I am able to. All right, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, as it's narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, that there will be an army that will raid the Kaaba, and this is in the last days, and when it reaches the desert land, all of them will be swallowed up by the earth, all of them. And so then Aisha, from her fiqh and from her deep understanding, she was like, okay, all of them are going to be swallowed up, but there's also other people from them. So she said, "Oh, Messenger of Allah, why all of them? Like, there's only certain people that were fighting and raiding, but the other people, what was their issue?" And the Prophet ﷺ, he answered, he said, "All of them will be swallowed up by the earth, but they will be raised for judgment according to their intentions." So yes, there'll be things that will happen to people, but the result of this with Allah is massively different depending on the person's intention. Why was he there? What was he doing there? And you say a calamity falls, and there's the judgment that Allah sends on to certain people, and it's because a certain group of people were doing evil. Okay, everyone died. What about the people that weren't necessarily a part of them? They didn't have anything to do with them. Allah will judge them according to their intentions, and their intentions are going to be the things that ultimately separate them from the rest. And that is what will be the saving factor is that the intention that they had with them. Also, the Aisha, she also narrates from the Prophet ﷺ that there is no immigration after the conquest of Mecca, la hijra ba'da al-fath, and that there's no immigration, meaning that the whole land of the Arabian Peninsula now has been pretty much conquered. So there's no immigration from Mecca to Medina anymore, since Mecca has been conquered. There's no need for that immigration, but rather they stay there. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there's no immigration, or there's no hijrah after the conquest of Mecca, but only jihad and niyyah, and having that intention. And so this is of the things that someone would have, and they would have that intention to do that. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said in a very famous hadith, ad-dinu nasiha. And an-nasiha, this word nasiha, a lot of times people will think nasiha means giving advice. If you read the rest of the hadith, the Sahaba, they asked a great question. They said, liman, like, who is this for? Like, an-nasiha, who is this for? And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, for Allah, and for His book, and for His messenger, and for the leaders of the Muslims, and the general Muslims, like the general populations of them. And so, of course, when we see this word an-nasiha here, and we say, how could this apply to Allah? The real essence of the meaning of nasaha, or like nasiha, it comes from ikhlas, and that's what the scholars will talk about. The real word here, nasiha, means ikhlas, and that this person, he has like nasahtu al-asal, which means like that I purified the honey from any of the things that were any of the things inside of it that were making it impure, from all the impurities and anything that falls into it and whatnot. And so this is the meaning of nasiha, is that ikhlas. And so, of course, when it applies to Allah, this means tawheed, and obeying and having that ikhlas and obedience. And when it comes to the Prophet, or when it comes to the Book of Allah, this means in reading it, learning it, and applying it. And when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ, then this applies to learning the Sunnah, as we're doing right now. Also sending salawat on him, as well as spreading the Sunnah and living according to it. And this is that nasiha for the Prophet ﷺ. Then, of course, the nasiha that is for the leaders also is like this. And it also applies to giving advice, and advice falls into this. And then, of course, without a doubt, this is appropriate for it, as well as to the rest of the believers. And what is essential, though, in this advice, a lot of times people will think about this hadith as the whole religion is just giving advice, but the word itself contains in this that it is ikhlas. So you could say the deen itself is sincerity. And now if it comes into advice, then this advice meaning that comes under the word nasiha, this is another meaning that falls under the generality of having sincerity. So, of course, if advice comes without the sincerity, this is not what we're looking at from the deen. We're looking for that advice that comes with sincerity from the heart of a person. When he talks to this person, ultimately, he has the good of this other person in mind. This is also the other meanings of nasiha. We'll talk about the essences of this. It means wanting good and right and rightful things for the other. And so this is of the beautiful meanings. And I hope this hadith now is understood in this proper way, because a lot of times they'll read ad-din nasiha and they take this to mean it's just advice. No, it means sincerity in regards to Allah and His Messenger and His book and of the Muslims, which encompasses sincere advice. And this is the essence of it. And so this is very important as well. And also that there will be also Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari radiallahu anhu. He said that we accompanied the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in an expedition when he said, and there are some men in Medina that are with you wherever you march and whichever valley you cross. They have not joined you in person because of their illness or because of their inability. And then he said, except that they share the reward with you. And so these people, they weren't able to go out in the ghazwa, like the battle expedition, with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but they had this in sincerity. If they really were able to do it, they were going to do it, and they had the intention to do it, but they didn't do it. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, they were sharing with all the rewards of the hardship that you went through, as you went through every single valley and all of this that is mentioned in the Quran. Nobody goes over a single valley or goes through any type of hardship except that they're going to get a reward for this. And so these people, they are also counted alongside of the reward, even though they never made it. And this is also mentioned in another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he talks about the person that is the person who is traveling or is sick. He'll get the reward of the muqim, that is sahih. Like the person who is traveling or sick, and if he's traveling, let me say he's shortening his prayers, or if he's sick, he's not able to come to the masjid and this and whatnot. But he's going to get the reward of the person of him while he was previously sahih, while he was previously healthy and muqim, and he was a resident. So this also shows the niyyah that a person has, and also this niyyah is not something that is just merely the desires, not accompanied by true reality. But this person, he used to go to the masjid. He used to pray all of his prayers in the masjid and pray the other things and whatnot. But as soon as something came that stopped him from this, he used to do this. He has the intention, if he wasn't to be held back by this, he has the intention that he would have done it. Allah is going to give him the reward for this. And this is of the fadl, or the favor of Allah, that He gives rewards for these things, even if we didn't necessarily do it. And this is also mentioned in the hadith al-Qudsi, that Allah has said, that Allah has ordered that the good and the bad deeds be written down. All the hasanat and sayyat are going to be written down. And then He made it clear how it's to be written. And He says, whoever intends to do a good deed but does not do it, then Allah records it for him as a full good deed. Hasanatan kamila. And Allah records it as a full good deed. This person, he wanted to do such and such. So he has this intention that he's going to go do such and such, and he's prevented from it, or maybe he forgot about it and whatnot, but he had real intention to do it. Allah records it as a full good deed. And then Allah records it. But if he carries out his intention, so he goes through and he actually does this thing, then Allah will write it down as 10 from 10 to 700 fold and even more. And that He will increase this deed over all of this. And so this initial intention is the source of either getting the one deed by itself, if the person was sadiq, if the person was truthful in his intention, and it's also the source of the multiplication of this deed to a great matter. So when somebody has the intention before they go and do whatever they're doing, and of course there's the intention that is accompanied by the act, such as somebody when they're going to pray, they have that intention. But there's also the intention that comes before the act, from way before, which is, it's not called niyyah, but it's called azm in Arabic. And this would be a way, or a hem, as it's mentioned in this hadith, where this person intends to do something in the future. And so this is a way for that person to multiply his deeds. And when he's truthful with himself and he actually follows through with this after having the intention from way back when, then he can get a ridiculously multiplied reward according to the favor of Allah. And from anywhere from 10 to 700. And the word 700, then it's not a limited word. Like the Arabs, occasionally they'll just use a big number to show it can be huge. That's what they mean by it. They don't mean a limitation of 700 times. They just mean huge. And then also it comes in the hadith to, however, and even more than that. And when Wallahu yudaifu liman yasha, and Allah He will multiply for whoever He wishes. And this, and also in the rest of the hadith, but if he intends to do an evil act and has not done it, and he leaves it, meaning that he leaves it for the sake of Allah. And this person doesn't do the evil act. Of course, if someone intends to do the evil act and they try and they just never make it around, okay, they're not going to get anything from this. Like, they're not getting a reward. But if he leaves it for Allah, then he's going to get one full reward from this. And so this is of the beauty that Allah, if the person, yes, he has the evil intention to do such and such act, but then he's like, no, I'm going to stay away from it for the sake of Allah. He's going to get a reward for this. And this is all within the intention. He's not necessarily doing an actual action other than just not following through that with the intention. And if he intends to do an evil act and has not done it, then Allah writes it down with him as a full good deed. And if he intends to do it and has done it, like he actually does, he follows through with that one, with that evil deed, then Allah writes it down as that one evil deed. And so this is of the things that Allah mentions, how the writing of these deeds goes about. And also note that there are certain things that the scholars of Usul, they'll talk about when it comes to the actions that are makruh or haram. And so they will give a definition for that which is makruh or haram, and they'll say the makruh action is that which someone will get a reward for leaving it. And they don't leave it at only this, but they'll say that if he leaves it wanting in obedience to Allah, and for like makruh, and he won't be punished for doing it. Or if it's haram, then he will be punished for doing it. Or he'll be like subject to punishment from that. And so they will say, they'll be very keen and specific to talk about that person. If he leaves one of these acts, he needs to leave it with intention. If he doesn't leave it with intention, he's not going to get that reward for leaving the haram. And so leaving the haram needs to be an active intention that somebody has when they do this. It's not just because, of course, they're not going to be punished for anything. Like they leave the haram and it was just because it never even came into their mind, they're not going to be punished whatsoever. But if they intentionally put themselves in scenarios for the sake of leaving haram, this is where they'll get a reward for intentionally leaving the haram or intentionally leaving that which is makruh. But if they just don't do it with no intention, then they're going to miss out on this reward. And so this is of the benefits that someone would have when it comes to leaving off actions. That if you want to get a reward for leaving off that which is prohibited, whether it's from something that is makruh or it's haram, then you got to have the intention for this, and that is what's going to give you the reward for leaving it. Of course, you're not going to be held liable regardless. And that also. The last one of the last things I'll mention is this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ he talks about, and this is about bad intention here. That ما ذئبان جائعان أرسلا في غنم بأفسد لها من حرص المرء على الماء والشرف لدينه. And so this hadith that Ka'b ibn Malik, he narrates from his father that the Prophet ﷺ said that two wolves free among sheep, like if you have two hungry wolves free among the sheep, just going at it, are no more destructive to those sheep than a man's desire for wealth and honor is to his religion. Like it's worse for that. So this actual hadith, Ibn Rajab, he actually, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote a whole book on this, and he talks about the importance of someone when it comes to these two issues, which is the desire that someone has for wealth and the desire for like nobility or like to be seen as something in the sight of others. And so he mentions this, and this is of a thing that, of course, if you can imagine, and this is of the beautiful ways of teaching that the Prophet ﷺ would use, is giving an example. Of course, if you can imagine two hungry wolves, they're just let off in a pen of sheep. They're they're going to kill this one, kill this one, kill this one. They're not even doing any. They're not going to even focus on getting just a good meal. They're just going to go crazy because they're very hungry. And so they will destroy the sheep in totality. And this is the example that the Prophet ﷺ gives to someone who is looking for wealth, and he's looking for prestige within the sight of others, and like al-mal wa sharaf. And this is what it does to his deen. It destroys it completely. And so somebody who they go into acts of worship, or maybe they go into dawah, maybe they go into some of these other things, and all of a sudden their intention will change, and no longer is the intention for Allah, but rather they want something from this dunya, or they want something for people to talk about them. This will absolutely destroy them. Just like these wolves that are hungry, let loose in a bunch of sheep, they're just going to go crazy and destroy them. This is what will happen. Of course, the stories of this are massive, of people that they will start off doing a good thing, but then at the end, all of a sudden something goes terribly wrong, and they turn away from the deen, or they're calling to something that is totally far away from the deen. And the reason for this is because their intention, it switched somewhere in there, or it was not right from the beginning, and this will completely destroy their deen in totality if they let that intention go from pleasing Allah to the seeking of wealth and of prestige, or like the people to look at them, and fame and fortune and that stuff. And so these are of the things that's very important for someone to look at in that. Inshallah, we only have about 5 minutes left. And of course, we can see what you all guys are open for. But inshallah, we will end this here. And any of you that have a question, inshallah, I'll answer that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sometimes you start an action with good intention, but then afterwards it becomes a habit. Going to Dawah, going every week, you're doing it as a schedule or as a routine, not intending every time.
So if somebody does an action and they make it a habit, then the fact that they made it a habit is actually a good thing. And inshallah, the original intention that they have will carry over, as long as they don't let something else come and change that intention. And so, yes, you do have to look at the intention, and you need to keep up with it. But the things becoming a habit, this is normal, and this can actually be, it can be a safeguard for you to continue doing good. This is the best way somebody can do good, is to make it a habit. But you should make sure that you don't let weeds come into this, in something that is going to corrupt that initial intention. And also note that when somebody gets, and when you talk about the habit, this was something else I wanted to talk about, was niyyah, and like having this niyyah is, and constantly keeping up with it is like a ship in the sea. If you were to have your destination that you're trying to go to, and you point the rudder to your destination, and you leave it, you're not going to get there ever. Because you got to keep constantly, the sea is blowing you about, and there's going to be these whispers from the shaitan from this thing, and you're going to have this other thing that comes up. You're constantly going to have to keep up on it and adjust as the wind blows you this way, or this wave came in this way. You're going to have to constantly adjust this niyyah. And so this is important that you keep up on it. But just the fact that somebody, they always go to the masjid. They don't even think about why they go to the masjid anymore. They just go. It's just ingrained in them. This is beautiful. And it's not going to take away the essence of the reward. But if they want the full reward, then they need to bring that full intention to the table when they're coming. Allah ta'ala. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one is a good question I was curious. Is it ever usable to mix your intention in the sense that someone invites me to the Dawah table and he tells me afterwards, let's go get food, for example, right? And let's go hang out afterwards, or we'll hang out at the Dawah table, something like that, right? Really, I should go for the Dawah table to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, should I be invited to go for food at the Dawah table? Like, should I be doing that? Like my intention?
So, like having incentives to do good, this is not necessarily something that's going to destroy the act of worship. Like the act of worship that you did, if you had an incentive to do it for something else, and this was something that did help you, it's not going to destroy it, but it can't be the essence of why you did this thing. And if it becomes the essence, it destroys it. If it becomes a major factor of why you did this, then you'll lose a lot of the reward. But of course, at the same time, if you're calling people to do good and you try to incentivize them, then the Prophet ﷺ, he used to do this for new Muslims. Like with new Muslims that would come into Islam, he would give them tons of gifts so that they would love Islam And yes, this is like dunya that came to him. And also, he would tell people if they got greedy that you're not gonna benefit. You're gonna take all of the barakah out of this by just taking extra and more and more and more. Allah's not gonna give you any more barakah in this. But so like the essence of incentivization to help someone who's weak is great, but at the same time they should be reminded that that ultimately you got to work on your niyyah and make sure that your niyyah ultimately is for Allah. If somebody takes some extra good on the side and their niyyah was perfect and it was for Allah and the essence of that was for Allah, this doesn't destroy their action and whatnot, and this is fine. Wallahu ta'ala. Any other questions? Yeah.
You have on how we can question what our niyyah might be. Maybe we have a habit that's just really old and it's a bad habit, and we're trying to get rid of it, but we don't really know why.
Yeah, and this is important, and that somebody looks at. And this is kind of the. You got to look at the real reason and the first and foremost, like that real reason why you do something. And ultimately, like how we got here, of course, we never got here except by that Allah created us and put us into this existence. Beginning of how we got here, Allah is also the one that we return to. Remember this. Remember that Allah is the one that I'm going to return to, and make sure that everything that you do, first and foremost, the only thing that I want is I want Allah. Like I want Allah from this action. And if this is your first and foremost the goal, and then you have other things that are means to getting to this, then this is great. And so occasionally there will be good things that come up in our life, and we will find that these good things have benefits. Such as, and say it's a bad habit that somebody is in, and one of the things that happens from this bad habit is that he's not able to focus. So he's like, all right, I want to focus, so I'm gonna do this. And it's a good thing for him to learn how to focus or whatever, leave social media and the scrollings and all that other stuff. So he leaves this, but his intention is to get the benefit. Or maybe he goes and he reads Quran because he likes the benefits that comes out when how he feels from this. Or maybe he goes and he prays in salah, or at the very beginning he never lets it leave him, and the benefit that he gets this from his own spiritual uplifting. This is what he's looking for. He's gonna miss the reward if he were to do this first and foremost for the pleasure of Allah. He does this first and foremost for the pleasure of Allah, and this is the first main goal. After this, if he needs incentives to help him out, and he's like, okay, if I do this, this is going to give me peace and tranquility in my life. Okay, this is going to give me community with my brothers, and I'm going to have this other sense of things. If this comes afterwards, no problem. But the essence always has to be look back. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I'm going back to Allah, and I want Him to be pleased with me. That has to be the essence. And of course, like the other side things that help. This is okay. It's okay, but the best is if you don't have to use these other things, and it's only for the sake of Allah, without that. But we are weak, and sometimes we need other incentives, like mind tricks or things to help us do that thing which is good. And there's no problem with that, inshallah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much for the lecture. So,
Barakallahu.
quick question, probably a continuation of this lecture is, what would you recommend some things someone can do to kind of be steadfast in your good intentions, what you want to do, not get distracted by other things? So some tips and or recommendations.
Yeah, the one aspect I believe I mentioned, which is self-awareness and constantly rechecking yourself, because the nafs, like the soul of a person, he loves to trick you. And so like it will constantly lie to you, like your own heart, or like yourself will lie to you all the time because it has its own goals, and it's run by hawa. And so we have to constantly look at ourselves and look at our inner intentions with suspicion. And of course, we should never let this suspicion drive us into insanity. But we shouldn't expect that if I look at myself and I say to myself, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, that I actually am. I should still have a suspicion of myself. And this is why Allah swears by an-nafs al-lawwama. In Surah Al-Qiyamah, Allah swears by the nafs, like that nafs, that soul, that's lawama, that's constantly giving a loam, which is like blame. It constantly blames the person and tells him, like, this thing, and this is a blameworthy, like, it constantly shows this person, you're not at the pinnacle of ikhlas. You got problems of this. And this is why the Salaf, they'll talk about the jihad that they did with their niyyah. They'll talk about this is a jihad. They don't expect that just because they looked inside themselves and they say, okay, I'm doing this for Allah, okay, I'm good. No, they don't. This is not acceptable, but I'm still going to go through with it and I'm going to work on it. And so this is of the things we can't like that. We can't trust ourselves when it comes to our niyyah. But the actions that we do and the forcing of the actions, like sometimes it has to be a forcing of actions for us to do the good actions in spite of the niyyah that isn't quite strong enough yet. Sometimes we'll have to force ourselves into this, but this, if someone continues with this, it'll be very strong. The Salaf, they used to talk about, a lot of them, that they would say that we sought knowledge at the beginning for the without good intention, and then once we sought knowledge for a period, then we fixed our intention, and this is good. And ultimately, somebody who seeks knowledge at the beginning, they don't know how to have good intention in the first place. So while they're seeking and they learn a little bit, they'll realize, okay, actually, intention is something that I need to fix. And I need to work on this. And you keep going in this, but it takes a constant awareness of, and also suspicion of yourself, and also coming back to the Quran and Sunnah to help remind you of the last day. You're meeting Allah. You're going to come back and stand before Allah. And also don't let people and their thoughts about you affect the decision ultimately. It's always got to be for the sake of Allah, and don't let them, as I mentioned, don't let them make you increase an act of worship, and don't make the person the cause of you increasing acts of worship for Allah, and also don't let them stop you from increasing acts of worship, or the waswas of shaitan from stopping you from increasing the acts of worship for Allah. And so this is very key. I hope, of course, this is not an issue where, since it is an inner battle, like the outward actions are a result of that. But when you see that you're able to stay firm on certain actions, then this can be a sign and an indicator that you are sincere in that. Allah Ta'ala. Any other questions? Yep. Azm. The azam, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. The word azam, it means to have a strong will to do something in the future. That's how they usually look at that. And so this also, Allah refers to the highest levels of the prophets as ulul azm, that they had this strong will and intention. Yeah. All right. If there's not any other questions, we'll call it for today. And thank you so much for your listening and for your contemplation in this matter. May Allah grant us sincerity in that which is between Him and that which is apparent. And may He give us tawfiq in accomplishing that which He is pleased with. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
استووا واستقيموا. Complete the first half. Left and right. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله. استغفر اللهم أنت السلام. تبارك